A spacewalk is one of the most difficult and exhilarating tasks an astronaut can do while in space. They are very technical and highly choreographed. But how do you train to work in weightlessness while on the ground? It turns out you can use a swimming pool. Astronauts train underwater to simulate the weightlessness of space, and to help with this work, NASA needs divers. Get ready to make a splash on this episode of Cosmic Careers. Working at the Johnson Space Center is more than just rocket science. At Cosmic Careers, we take a look at some of the many other jobs that make human spaceflight possible. I'm here at the Sonny Carter Training Facility to learn how scuba divers help astronauts train for spacewalks. Here at NASA, we have simulators and mockups of nearly everything that astronauts will experience or interact with while in space. But the one thing we can't easily simulate on the ground? Microgravity. To train for these rigorous and painstakingly planned spacewalks, scientists and engineers have come together to create the closest environment possible, the Neutral Buoyancy Lab. It's a 40-foot deep diving tank that contains a full-size mock-up of most of the International Space Station, as well as an area that simulates the surface of the moon. Here's how it works. When a suited astronaut enters the water, they must first go through what divers call a way out. Divers will put either weights or foam floats into pockets all over the spacesuit to give the astronaut that weightless feeling, as if they're in space. This state, where the astronaut neither sinks to the bottom nor floats to the top, is called neutrally buoyant. Hence the name Neutral Buoyancy Lab. And it's currently the best method available for astronauts to train for spacewalks. NASA has a long history of using water to train for space missions. And divers have always been an essential part of that training. Beginning with the Gemini program in the 1960s, NASA discovered that spacewalks were more difficult than anticipated, and training underwater is just what they needed to help astronauts prepare for microgravity. The Neutral Buoyancy Lab is now the third and largest pool used for underwater training here in Houston. But the Sonny Carter Training Facility is home to so much more than a pool. It's also where NASA teams refurbish and refit spacesuits for underwater use, painstakingly maintain diving equipment, and assist in designing, building, and installing full-size mock-ups of ISS modules. This, along with dive-ready versions of all the tools, hardware, and gear you might need in space, gives the astronauts the ultimate spacewalk training experience. And divers are a critical part of it all. In order to learn more about the people that make this out-of-this-world training possible, I met with two members of the dive team, Emily Cox and Reilly Holmgreen. They agreed to show us what goes on behind the scenes at the NBL and give us an idea of what it's like to be a diver for NASA.
I graduated from Texas A&M in Galveston. I actually studied marine biology and anthropology there, and so I decided to learn scuba diving while studying marine biology because I saw myself doing scientific research for my whole life, thinking I would need to do my own diving to collect my own research. It was also while I was at TAMUG that I learned about the facility here, the Neutral Buoyancy Lab, and at that point, kind of set my sights on the Neutral Buoyancy Lab.
Why do I dive? That's a great question. I love it. It's like flying on Earth. There's no other feeling like it. It's weightlessness. It's freedom. It's quiet. So I studied geology and business at the University of Texas, and it was my plan to go work in the oil field after I graduated, but what brought me to NASA was back when I was in college, my mom worked in the shuttle program, so I knew this facility existed, and I was just getting into scuba diving. I had the opportunity through one of my dive instructors to come to the NBL and see the facility and fell in love with it and changed my career goals to come and work here. And I thought, what a great career. I get to scuba dive for a living.
The main certification that you need here for the NBL is just a standard open water scuba diver certification. The only requirement, in fact, for being on the dive team is 25 log dives. So you can get that number of dives usually just with an open water certification. And I think that's cool for the dive team because we come from all walks of life. We have scientific divers like me, divers on the dive team with military affiliations, Navy divers, Navy SEALs, commercial divers, recreational divers, instructors, all across the board. So I just find it really cool that all these people can come together, and the main thing that unites us is our dive experience.
To support spacewalk training, there are 4 divers for each astronaut covering 3 positions. 1 video or float diver who has an underwater camera so the test team on the surface can see what is going on. 2 safety divers who monitor the astronaut at all times, watching for malfunctions and ready to act in case of emergencies. And a utility diver who is responsible for making sure that tools and test equipment are where they're supposed to be.
When I get into the pool to dive with the astronauts, I feel excited. I feel like I'm part of the mission. I feel like I'm part of the team that's helping these astronauts to succeed and fulfill their mission.
During our visit, Emily got to do something a little different. She got to be the astronaut. As part of egress training to get the astronaut out of the water as quickly and safely as possible in an emergency situation, Emily donned a spacesuit so that her fellow divers could practice these important procedures.
There are things that we have to be constantly aware of and vigilant of. So during egress trainings, we will practice emergency scenarios. What if your subject passes out while they're in the suit? The safety divers need to be able to react right away and safely egress the subject. So the safety diver's role at that point is to get the subject upright. The test director will give different instructions for the safety diver's procedures based on the severity of the scenario. But for the divers to get in the suit, it actually is super beneficial because you understand how to support the crew members better, having been in the suit yourself. On a regular day here, we are, bottom line, supporting the astronaut spacewalks. If we have astronauts here that are already assigned to a flight, they might actually be practicing the spacewalks that they'll be performing when they fly into space. We can then compare their work in the pool with what they actually end up doing on space, and I love that.
Being a diver for the NBL is a really big job. Do I have what it takes? I asked Emily and Reilly if I could experience a dive at the NBL. I should point out, I am a certified diver, but I've never done anything like this. There was a lot of preparation before this dive. Beyond my recreational scuba certification, I had to get permission from the leadership at the NBL. Then I had to get a physical from the JSC clinic doctor, pass a grueling NBL swim test, and take their diver orientation course. With all of that out of the way, I'm ready to go. Reilly takes me to the pool deck.
This is the Neutral Buoyancy Lab at the Sonny Carter Training Facility. This diving tank is 102 feet wide by 202 feet long, and it contains 6.2 million gallons of water. It is chlorinated just like your pool at home would be, just on a much larger scale. The water is 86 degrees, and you're able to dive in the pool for up to 5.5 hours a day. But even with that temperature at 86 degrees, most of the divers still wear neoprene wetsuits to fight off the chill.
This dive isn't just for fun. We are setting up for a real EVA training run scheduled for tomorrow.
You're gonna hear a squeak when I pressurize.
First, we set up our scuba gear and leave it for inspection by the dive supervisor. Astronauts will be performing spacewalks to install new solar arrays to power the International Space Station. The solar array requires a large mounting bracket, just like the one we'll be putting together today.
Today we are gonna be setting up a work site, and they're actually working at this work site in space right now. So we're gonna get it ready in the pool so they can come practice in the pool before doing this in space.
Afterwards, can we see the rest of the pool?
Oh yeah, I have a lot I want to show you, show off our new lunar area and the airlock. It's gonna be great.
I'm really excited.
Let's splash!
When you get your first glimpse underwater, it's a little overwhelming. The pool is immense, and its depth is deceptive. I can see the space station ahead of us, but I don't want to get distracted. I need to concentrate on the work we need to do. The tanks on my back are heavy. Gaining my balance and finding my center of gravity underwater is a challenge. We make our way to the work site and get started piecing together the mounting bracket. I admire how Emily maintains her positioning. I'm definitely struggling with my buoyancy. I find myself drifting upwards, being pulled down, and even rolled to the side. Getting control is difficult, and I'm bracing myself against the structure to avoid floating away. Emily is making quick work on the bolts of the first piece. Now, we're ready for the first strut. Emily brings it into place and starts the installation. Then it's my turn. I find an angle to get some leverage, but my bolt is a lot stiffer than I expected. I'm having trouble and using a lot of force with the wrench. The bolt is stuck. Emily signals to me, telling me it's cross-threaded and helps me reset it. This time, it's much easier. Success! With a few more steps, the assembly of the solar array mounting bracket is complete. Emily takes me on a tour of the pool. We stop atop a module of the space station to watch a pair of divers lower a tool cart to the pool floor using balloons. They move effortlessly despite the heavy cargo. We enter the space station's airlock. It's larger than I had expected from watching spacewalks on TV. While not exactly roomy, it would be a lot tighter if I was wearing a spacesuit. Continuing our tour of the NBL, Emily takes me away from the International Space Station and to the moon, a simulated lunar surface. The regolith is like large, coarse sand. The team researched a special sand that would behave like real lunar soil in the water. Swimming over the simulated moon is exciting, but trying to stand on it in flippers with heavy tanks on your back? It's not easy. I fell over and my flipper popped off. Leaving the moon, we swim up to one of the station's truss sections and begin traversing it hand over hand, just like the astronauts do during spacewalks. Moving in this orientation feels natural in the water, and I can see why the NBL is the perfect way to train astronauts for the weightlessness of space. Next, we swim along the station's giant robotic arm. For the first time, I realize just how large it is. We wrap up the tour inside one of the truss sections. Then it's time to head back to the surface. I finally have a better understanding of what it's like to be an NBL diver.
I think that what drives me to dive is the fact that you're kind of entering another world. Humans have this inherent barrier to being able to breathe underwater. It's physiologically impossible for us. And so to have this ability to, you gotta strap the equipment on, bring a lot of equipment with you to be able to breathe underwater, kind of feels like you're defying physics. And for me, I just think that's really cool. And I think about it every day I get in the water and leave the surface, about how it should be impossible for me to do this, but the fact that I'm doing this and it's my job, it's a really cool feeling, and I want to keep doing it every day.
It's been an incredible experience to be able to dive here at the Neutral Buoyancy Lab and learn how divers make spacewalk training possible. Thank you to everyone at the Sonny Carter Training Facility for giving us this opportunity. As you can see, NASA is much more than just rocket science. There are so many important jobs here, and an NBL diver is just one of them. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next time on Cosmic Careers.
What did you think when we were putting on that mod kit? Was it as you expected?
First off, it was really cool. Like, getting hands-on equipment in a simulated space station was just amazing to do.
Yeah.
And you guys make this look so easy. Just
thanks.
swimming around in the water, you were able to like thread the needle on multiple, cross beams and stuff. And here I am banging into stuff, flipping upside down. I definitely in the lunar area flipped onto my back a couple times, totally unintentionally, just
Beetled out.
yeah. Oh no, what am I doing? You guys make this look so easy, and this definitely isn't.
It's the time in the water. That's the only thing that gets you comfortable and just makes it feel a lot more natural. It's just the time in the water, and I feel like this job especially, you just get better as you go. And
You guys spend a lot of time in the water.
we do. I mean, I have 1,900 hours in the pool.
Wow.
But as you were turning bolts and as I showed you step by step, I saw you improve from the very first time you were hands on a bolt to the next time it got more and more intuitive to you. I even saw your buoyancy improve throughout the dive.
So if me or one of our viewers wanted to do this full time, what would it take for them to get to this point?
The best thing would be to start practicing your spatial awareness. As you can see, there's plenty to hit your head on, to get caught on, stuck on. Really focus on becoming spatially aware of everything, above you, below you, around you. Practice with your hand tools, even just wrenches. That's the simplest tool that you could use just about. And out of the pool, no big deal. In the pool, just a little different, just a few more added layers of difficulty. So practice with your hand tools, and above all else, start to practice your buoyancy. Those are the biggest things. And if you come in here, you really want to do this and be a diver, if you come in here, you got your buoyancy on point, you are incredibly comfortable with hand tools, and you know who is standing behind you right now, you're ready. You can do this.
That's awesome. It doesn't take a lot besides having your dive certification to be a diver here.
That's the
But
truth.
this is an incredible job.
Yeah, I love it.